So welcome to today's session for the Graduate Diploma in Immigration and Citizenship Law, or GDIP-ICL, admissions information session to prepare you to apply for our January 2025 admission cycle. So this is a webinar geared towards our upcoming application, which will open up on June 1st. For anyone who is here who has applied for September 2024, this is not a webinar to provide any information about that intake. So you'd be best to just contact our program team if you have any questions. So this is more prepared for individuals who are looking towards the future and looking to begin in our program starting this coming January. So here's our general overview, our agenda for today. So we're going to be taking a look at some GDIP-ICL highlights, so some history, professional opportunities, the specific courses, delivery models, study plans, and then tuition. And then we're going to look more deeply into the admissions process, talking about requirements for everybody, which are transcripts and references, and the personal statement of interest response, and then the requirements that other individuals may need to meet, which are the English language proficiency test scores, and the access pathway. Then we'll talk a little bit about key takeaways, and then we'll do just some wrap up in regards to the January 2024 admission cycle. At the end of the session, we will have a Q&A. So if you have any questions for us, we will be opening the Q&A once we've completed the entire presentation. So more information will be available closer to the end of the session. Before we jump into the presentation, though, we obviously want to do our land acknowledgement, which is to identify that Queen's University is physically situated on traditional unceded Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee territory, as am I as well, located here in Kingston, Ontario. Queen's has a major focus on indigeneity and supporting our Indigenous learners, our staff, our faculty, and the community at large. Atrocities are still being brought to light that were committed against the Indigenous population over the course of Canada's history, and we want to continually acknowledge those atrocities, apologize, reconcile as best as possible, and move forward together. If you want to learn more about indigeneity on campus, you can visit the websites for the Office of Indigenous Initiatives or the Forward Directions Indigenous Student Center. There are great supports for any student who self-identifies as Indigenous, and we would be more than happy to provide that information to anybody who's incoming into the GDIP-ICL. Just as a general introduction, this is me. I'm Don Ames. I'm the manager of admissions and recruitment. I've been doing this now for 6 full admission cycles, going into our 7th with January 2025. So I've got a bit of information here to provide out to individuals for this program, and hopefully the information you're going to gather in this session will really guide you into understanding if this program is right for you, as well as giving you exactly what you need to prepare in order to get ready for the application process. Let's go ahead and jump into our GDIP-ICL highlights. So the GDIP-ICL program was forged between an agreement between Queen's University and the College of Immigration and Citizenship Consultants, or the CICC for short. The CICC is the regulating body that manages the regulated Canadian immigration consultant profession. So the RCICs who are guiding future Canadians coming into the country, managing their statuses, helping them with paperwork, making sure that they immigrate to Canada successfully, fairly, and they're not receiving any ill treatment. They're all governed by the CICC, which is a fantastic organization, and I encourage everyone who wants to become an RCIC to learn more by visiting the CICC's website. Our program began in January 2021. The program is the only English language educational pathway to become entry to practice exam eligible. So the entry to practice exam, or the EPE for short, is what the CICC issues to our graduates when they want to become a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. Our program is the only English language program that makes you eligible to write that EPE. With our partner program being at the University of Montreal, they are the French language educational pathway. So there's only the 2 programs now in all of Canada or globally that are eligible to be the EPE a pathway for individuals who want to become immigration consultants either here in Canada or globally. No other program makes you eligible. So if you're looking at other institutions, whether that be at the college level, the university level, career college level, any of those programs don't make you qualified or eligible to write the EPE. So this is the pathway if you are interested in becoming a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. From the start of our program, it was geared to be delivered entirely online, and it still remains like that to this day. We're extremely proud as to how we offer the education in this program. It is a really great way to learn, especially with a lot of individuals coming from across Canada and internationally as well. We're able to house all students, no matter what your citizenship, no matter where your location is, in our program, provided that you can study real hard, be diligent in your readings, your assignments, your activities, and you're able to attend live tutorials in the Eastern Standard Time Zone. And those who are leading those tutorials are world-renowned instructors from a variety of backgrounds and professions. We have current immigration consultants, current lawyers, lots of individuals who within the immigration and citizenship ecosystem understand exactly what you need to know to be successful as an RCIC and beyond. So I've already covered the requirements here of becoming an RCIC. You have to complete our program, then you go write the EPE, and after that, you get the immediate designation of being an RCIC-IRB. That enables you to practice. So there's some additional requirements from the CICC for those who want to just become RCICs in general. There's a mentorship program. There's some professional development opportunities that you have to participate in, but all of that is covered within the CICC's website. So if this is the pathway for you to become an immigration consultant, make sure you understand all of the steps, not only just the education requirement for our program, but also for the requirements outside of our program and when you are going for your designation. There are other opportunities for individuals who graduate our program, though. This is not just a program only for immigration consultants. Now, we do see a lot of our applicants who are interested in becoming an RCIC. There's also a lot of great interest in government work or NGO work, private industry that has an international employment requirement or focus. Lots of people focus on policy development and implementation. So maybe it's not specifically related to government, but there's other ways that policy is being implemented to impact in a positive way immigration and citizenship in Canada. This is a great opportunity to really understand the entire ecosystem in full. We also see individuals who have prior law experience who want to continue on in their practices. They want to be a better paralegal. They want to be a better law clerk. Lawyers are participating in our program because there's great professional development opportunities. And then we see a lot of human resources professionals come through. Individuals who manage kind of the recruitment and selection, the hiring processes. They manage policy within organizations. Specific around employees and where they're coming from and what's needed. Obviously, there's huge focuses on temporary foreign work programs, things along those lines. This is definitely going to help any business or industry for our graduates are participating in. Again, there's invaluable knowledge, helps everything related to the professional world. Any aspect that touches an international focus is going to be hugely beneficial by completing our program. So let's talk about the program itself. So the image there on the right-hand side of your screen is a one-pager you can download directly from our website, but we've broken it down into a few slides here just to help you understand what you're applying for and what's expected of all of our incoming students for January 2025. So students in our program complete 9 courses in total, and they complete those courses over 3, 6, or 9 consecutive terms. So a three consecutive term student would be classified as a full-time student. And you can see the study plan there on the left. You're taking 3 courses per term for 3 consecutive terms. So anybody who starts in January 2025 will take 3 courses January to April, 3 courses May to August, and then 3 courses September to December, finishing up the program before 2026 starts. So you're just finishing it in a little under a year. Now, for anybody who's looking for a part-time study plan, we offer 6 consecutive term study plans or 24-month part-time study plans for January applicants. You can see from the study plan, part-time students will take 1 to 2 courses per term, depending on the term. So you can see if it's for those first 2 terms, you'll take 2 courses, then you'll take 3 terms of 1 course, and then you'll finish up the program at the end with 2 final courses. This will take you 2 years to complete. So anybody starting January 2025 will finish the program just at the end of December 2027. We have a 3-year or 36-month part-time study plan, but that is not available for January applicants. It's only available for applicants who are studying, who are beginning their studies in September. The reason for that is because our study plans are set menus. This is not a menu where you can pick and choose what you want to participate in. These study plans are set, and these are the exact courses that full-time and part-time students will experience when they begin their studies this January. We enroll you in your courses. You don't have to worry about selecting, picking, and choosing. These are what you're going to take. But one of the things that we get a lot is, am I taking all of these courses at the same time? 3 courses can be pretty daunting for an individual who's maybe coming back to studies or is first experiencing online activities. Maybe even 2 courses would be a bit daunting, but things aren't happening all at the same time. You can see here from our staggered course structure image, full-time students will take ICL 810, the intro course, first from January until the end of February. And then following that course, you'll take 2 consecutive courses, ICL 820 and 830. So we kind of ease you into the learning by giving you 1 course first and then followed by 2. But ICL 810 is an intensive 6-week course, so it's not a light ease in. You are going to be jumping in head first into your studies with that first course. Part-time studies, you're only going to be taking the ICL 810 first, then followed by ICL 820. So again, it's not happening all at the same time. There's a staggered structure to help you understand, to get you to be successful in these courses, because we want you to be successful throughout the entire program. Tutorials are a key component of this program. Now, while much of the program is self-directed, that's done asynchronously, so your readings, your online activities and assignments, quizzes are done outside of a classroom setting and kind of done at your own speed, on your own pace, with set deadlines, obviously, for assignments and quizzes. There are live mandatory tutorials for all of our courses. Tutorials take place on either weeknight evenings, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or weekends midday between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So those are set. We'll actually be able to provide our tuition and financing link at the end of this, and we're updating that website to show exactly what the days are for each tutorial. So 8:10, I believe those tutorials are going to take place on Wednesday nights or Saturdays midday. And then other courses, maybe Thursday nights and Sunday midday. So it'll vary depending on the course, but typically you're looking at a Wednesday or a Thursday and a Saturday or a Sunday. There are mandatory 1-hour plenary tutorials for our first and last course in this program. So ICL 810, everybody starts off with that course. You'll be doing your 2 hours of tutorials every week, but then every week as well, you'll be doing an additional 1 hour, which takes place on Tuesday evenings, 8 to 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All students attend the same tutorials. It's the same structure if you're a full-time or part-time student. The only difference between those study plans is the number of courses that you're taking in a term. Tutorials are mandatory. So the ICL 810 course is only 6 weeks in length, and I'm actually going to show you a slide later on here that breaks down what the length is of all of the courses. Missing 1 tutorial out of 6 is going to be pretty significant in affecting your study. So make sure that when you are preparing to apply for this program and you're interested in it, you know what the requirements are and you understand what the time constraints will be on your professional and personal capacities. Our tutorials are done all via Zoom, of which you have to have your camera on. So make sure that your technology is up to date. You have a camera, you have a microphone that you can participate in, and that's how you are marked for attendance, by being live at that tutorial. When it comes to tuition, tuition is also very structured. There's a 1 amount of tuition that's paid by all students. There's no differentiation between domestic and international tuition. Also, for incoming students, there's a one-time tuition deposit of $400 to secure your space in the upcoming term. That $400 is applied to your tuition for that first term. So you'll be able to monitor that within your student information system, basically. The tuition deposit is non-refundable, so if you pay that and you're ready to start, but there's something that happens that you're unable to begin your studies, unfortunately, that's non-refundable at that point. So again, make sure you're prepared to pay that to begin this process. Tuition as a whole for the entire program is paid per term and only for the courses that you are enrolled in. So like that breakdown that I showed you earlier, full-time students will pay for 3 courses for the first term, 3 courses for the second term, and 3 courses for the third term. Whereas part-time students will pay for either 1 or 2 courses depending on the term. There is an option for our students to apply for the Queen's Tuition Payment Plan. So that is an option to help break down that lump sum of tuition into 4 equal installments across the 4 months of each term. So you will be able to apply for that once you are provided an offer of admission and tuition is populated within your student account, but it is available. Some things that aren't available though is OSAP funding. So here in Ontario, typically students who are attending a post-secondary institution can apply for government assistance, which is the OSAP program. This is not eligible for our program, unfortunately. That's a Central Queen's decision. We would love for our program to be eligible for OSAP, but at this time it's not. So make sure you understand the impacts of not only being in Ontario, but other provinces and territories as well. There's an agreement that in Canada that if a home province doesn't offer provincial funding for a specific program, that affects other provinces and territories as well. So you may not be able to apply for funding in BC or Newfoundland or Nunavut, but there are other means to fund the tuition, and I definitely encourage everybody to look into all of the options available to them. Full-time applicants can apply for our entrance bursary. So you apply for that during the admissions process after you submit your application. The applications for those will close on August 15th. Again, it's only for full-time students. An application to our program is required, but you don't need to have a decision made to apply for that. So that's why you apply for it during the admissions process. We'll provide a ton of information about the bursary to all of our applicants during the admissions process to make sure that we get as many applicants for or applications for that as possible. There's only a select few available, and you have to demonstrate your financial needs. So make sure again that you're filling out that form in full, and the Student Awards Office, who manages the bursary applications, will do their best to offer whoever is eligible for a bursary at the time of offer of admission. For those who don't qualify for the bursary, who need some additional assistance with funding, I definitely encourage you to look at our RBC line of credit agreement. We have this partnership with RBC to offer a line of credit to our students. There's great information available via our tuition and financing page, including contact information for our RBC representatives. The final point that I want to stress here when it comes to understanding if this program is right for you is to take our self-assessment. Within our website, we offer a Qualtrics survey. It is our 20-minute, roughly, self-assessment that asks you a lot of really great questions about your interest in the program, your technology capacities, your past post-secondary education, some different ideas as to what's interesting you about this program, and it'll help you with understanding if the GWDP ICL is right for you. So definitely take a look at that. Also take a look at the other options that are available for you when it comes to information delivery. Visit all of our web pages, review the admissions page, tuition and financing. Our FAQs are really helpful when it comes to understanding the program more. Attending these webinars is great. I will be hosting webinars all throughout the months of May, June, and July. So there will be plenty of opportunities to come and speak to us, or email your questions to immigrationdiploma@queensu.ca. We don't provide pre-assessments, so you can't provide us with your documents and say, oh, I want to know if I'm eligible. That has to be done by you. There's great resources available as well online to see if you can convert over international studies into a 4.3 GPA, just to better understand if you meet the B average. But we don't do those within our email address. We only provide assessments based on completed applications and all documents provided. All right, so that is the getting ready to apply section. Again, lots of great information. Definitely encourage you to attend another webinar maybe in the future. I will have specific webinars on the access pathway, transcripts and English language proficiency test scores, as well as individual webinars on references and English language proficiency test scores. So review the links that I provide at the end of this session. One of them will be our Linktree link, which will provide you with directions to register for any of our future sessions. And also be on the lookout for the program overview session that we host with Sherry Aiken, who's our academic director, as well as a couple of alumni. We always have a need to hear from Sherry and to hear from alumni who have been through this program. It's a great webinar that will be issued probably sometime in mid to late June. But let's go ahead and talk about the application process and specifically the admission requirements for our program. So this is broken down into two different sections. The first section is documents that every single applicant needs to provide. The other section is documents that many applicants need to provide, but not all. So let's go ahead and take a look at the things that everybody needs to provide first. So the number one admission criteria for our program, because we are a graduate level program at the university level, is the completion of a bachelor's degree from a recognized university or equivalent institution. So that means that you've studied at the undergraduate level at a university or equivalent institution, and you've completed a bachelor's degree and you've received a B average. So that could come in many different forms. It could be all from one institution, or maybe you've transferred some credit from a previous institution and you've completed a bachelor's elsewhere. What really needs to be understood at this point is that it's not just the bachelor's transcript that we need, though. We want to see your entire post-secondary history. That's how we make a fulsome assessment of your abilities in a post-secondary setting. And that's why applicants must provide and identify all post-secondary studies they've either attempted and or completed. So that means if you started a program but didn't finish, you need to list that on your application. If you finished a bachelor's program, you need to list that on your application as well. If you finished a graduate level program, a master's, a PhD, a graduate diploma, you need to list that as well. Or maybe you did something at the college or SAGEP level. You need to list those as well. Some other documents that you need to provide. I've already mentioned transfer credit. Transfer credit is really pivotal. A lot of individuals start at an institution, but don't finish their degrees there. Perhaps, for an example, you've started in India, you were at the University of the Punjab, and you started your Bachelor of Engineering degree. But after 2 years, you decided, I want to seek a different program abroad, and you move to Ontario and you start studying at the University of Toronto. And maybe you're just studying a Bachelor of Science program. If you've had any of those documents transfer, or any of your previous courses from the University of the Punjab transferred to University of Toronto, it will be noted on your University of Toronto transcript. And what you need to do is you need to provide transcripts for both your University of the Punjab as well as the University of Toronto. We want to see all of those documents because the way that we assess your GPA is by understanding your courses and the grades that you've received. And the only way we can do that is by receiving transcripts. International programs, they may not call them transcripts, they may be mark sheets. I'll demonstrate what we're looking for, but it really has to list the courses that you've completed and the grades you've achieved. Anything that you've done in a study abroad program. So let's take this same individual that we were just mentioning. They transferred to the University of Toronto, but say in their final year, in their first term, they decided to go to the University of Aberdeen on an exchange program. Now this individual needs to provide 3 transcripts. They need to provide the University of the Punjab, the University of Toronto, and now the University of Aberdeen. Again, it gives us a fulsome assessment of your post-secondary career, and it really does help us understand your abilities at the post-secondary level. The final item that we need to mention here are non-degree study transcripts. So say this same individual who has those 3 transcripts they need to provide, 20 years after their completed bachelor's study, they decided to go to Athabasca University online and take a film course. They were just interested. They have this love of lifelong learning. They wanted to go back into a university setting for at least one course. Maybe because the start of the pandemic, they were really interested in doing some education. They had some free time. We would now need to see transcripts from those previous studies, as well as that Athabasca University study. So basically, the rule of thumb here that we note is that if you've received credit from a post-secondary institution, document it on the application and have the source transcript or transcripts available. That's everything that I've just mentioned here. Make sure that you are contacting your institutions. You can acquire PDF copies in English. of your documents, or if you have copies of your transcript, get them scanned. Do high quality scans in black and white and make sure that they are completely legible. They're not blurry. Ensure that you have all of your pages as well. That's a really key element that a lot of transcripts miss. People think that they only need to provide 1 year, like their final year, or maybe they only provide a summary document. We need to see all pages from all years and all terms to make a fulsome assessment. And for international studies, of course, we accept international credentials for our assessment process. What you should also include are degree or diploma certificates. So basically the certificate you received at the conclusion of your program indicating that you completed it. A lot of North American transcripts provide that information right there on the document, on the transcript. Many international institutions don't. So the way that we know that you've completed your program is you provided all of the transcripts for all of your terms and years of study, and you provide your degree or diploma certificate. This is an example of a North American transcript that we typically see in our program. So you can kind of see it breaks down. It's one large page. It has all of the terms from an individual's studies here. Perhaps it continues on to a next page, which this one does. And there's some other key things that we want to see, and these can kind of blend into all different credentials, not only just North American ones, but international ones as well. What we look for when it comes to a transcript are not only the general information, but there's a signature from somebody official with the institution. There's some sort of seal, insignia, or watermark that indicates that the document is official. It lists the name of your institution. But primarily what we're looking for from all of our transcripts that are submitted for our program is this section here. It breaks down the term, it breaks down the courses, and it breaks down the grades and credits. So we need to see the courses you've taken, the grades you've received, and the credit associated with each of those courses in order to make a fulsome assessment of your program and your previous studies. And as I mentioned, for international credentials, you should include a degree or diploma certificate, something that lists your name, it lists the program and the date that your degree or diploma was conferred, and it's signed off by somebody. Again, the more documents you can provide, the better for us, because we want to see everything that you've done. And don't think that you're only providing your most recent or your highest level documents. We need to see everything. These are some documents we don't accept in our program. This is a sample of kind of a screenshot or an image from somebody's online account with their institution. We don't utilize these documents. They're typically unofficial. They're typically very difficult to read, and they're just not suitable for the admissions process. If you have the ability to acquire a PDF copy of your transcript, get those before you apply. Also, one of the things I want to note is that we don't control our application directly. Our application goes through the School of Graduate Studies and Postdoctoral Affairs Office, or SGSPA for short. They have fantastic staff who manage the official document requirements for our program, and they are kind of our first line of defense when it comes to documents being submitted to the program. They will not accept anything that's listed as unofficial. So you can see here, this is a Toronto Metropolitan University transcript, and there's that big unofficial blazoned right across there. They will note that and then not accept that for the admissions review process. You will then have to have TMU submit a PDF copy of your transcript either directly to you or to the School of Graduate Studies and Postdoctoral Affairs office on your behalf to then officially receive your document. So nothing unofficial, nothing printed, no photocopies, and no photos. This is an example of something that we've seen a lot in our program. This is a very bad document photo that we cannot utilize for this process. Now, the sample is superimposed onto this, but the picture remains the same. It's not really clear. It's not bright. Sometimes they're typically very blurry. And a lot of documents, as you saw from the first document that I demonstrated in this slide series, it usually has a lot of information that's very, very small. And typically a lot of those documents don't photograph well for the intentions of not for no reproductions or for negative use of a document. So if you have a physical copy of your own documents, say you have a copy of your University of Toronto transcripts from that same example, scan them. Go to an office supply store. Lots of libraries scan documents for free or a very minimal cost. If you yourself possess your own scanner, scan the documents in black and white and have those PDFs ready to go. That it will significantly impact in a positive way if you can get really great PDF copies of your documents, and then we won't have to waste time trying to acquire better copies later on in the admission review process. Another thing that I really want to note here in regards to international documents is that we don't accept third-party assessment transcripts or documents in place of transcripts. So WES, ICAS, ECE, I know the University of Toronto, I believe their continuing education department does assessments. Those don't take the place of transcripts. They're great documents that you can provide to us in support of your application, but you still need to have those official transcripts ready to go for the admission review process. If you don't have your transcripts now, begin the process of acquiring them. Our application opens in about 16 days, so you still have plenty of time even before the application opens. And then when the application does open, you can submit your application, upload your documents, or log in at a later point and upload once you're able to acquire really good PDF copies of your documents. One of the things that I really want to note is that some individuals have documents that are not in English. Certified translations are acceptable. I do encourage you to contact the SGSPA office at sgspa.reception@queensu.ca for more information about translations. So key takeaways when it comes to transcripts. All transcripts, all studies, all years. Easy enough to think about. Go back into your history right from the minute you graduated from high school up until the second that you apply. If you are in progress with something, if you have completed, if you attempted something but didn't complete it, make sure you provide that with your application. You're not providing just your last or latest study. You're not providing just your highest level of study. So if you just submit a PhD transcript, we will then go back to you and ask, well, where's your undergraduate, and did you do any other masters or other graduate program like a master's or an MBA? Typically, there's a story to somebody who's gotten to a graduate level, and that story is an undergraduate program, and that's what our primary basis of admission is. We utilize everything for our assessment, but that primary basis of admission is that undergraduate study. As I already mentioned, English PDF format, translations, you should contact the SGSPA office for more information. Third-party assessment documents can be provided in support, but not in place of official transcripts. If you've received transfer credit, if there is something listed on that University of Toronto transcript that says transfer credit received 30, 60 units, however many units, maybe it's from multiple different institutions, we will notice that and we will ask you for all of those different institutions' transcripts. So make sure you are acquiring those documents now. All right, another thing that all applicants need to provide with their application is 2 references. So there are 2 different types of references for our program: professional references and academic references. One thing to note here is that all applicants must submit 1 professional reference at minimum. So typically we see a lot of applications that submit 2 professional references. Sometimes some applicants will provide 1 professional and 1 academic, but the academic reference requirement is very, very specific. So make sure you know what's required of your application based on your studies. The academic reference is only required from those who studied in a post-secondary program within 2 years from the month of their application. So the application will open June 2022. If you completed a 2024, if you completed a program prior to June 2022, which is where that number comes in, you don't need to provide an academic reference. We will not accept it. You will then need to provide 2 professional references. If you have studied at a post-secondary institution since June 2022, so say you were in an undergraduate program 10 years ago, but then you went back and did your MBA at, say, York University. If that MBA program finished up in June of 2023, it's great. We now want to see 1 professional reference and 1 academic reference. And that academic reference must come from the program that you studied within that 2-year window. So you have to go back to your MBA studies and get a academic reference from York University. You can't go all the way back to your undergraduate studies, which were 10 years ago, and get an academic reference at that point. That individual has had quite a long period of time away from knowing you in an academic setting that won't qualify for an academic reference. It's only required, an academic reference is only required from individuals, from applicants who have studied within the last 2 years. So don't provide an academic reference if you've studied 10, 12, 20 years ago. You have to provide 2 professional references at that point. Let's talk about what a professional reference is. A professional reference is a current or former manager or supervisor. This can be from a domestic or international place of business. It can be conducted from or can be received from somebody who has supervised or managed you in a volunteer experience. It can be from full-time or part-time employment. Basically, you're looking for someone who has identified themselves as your manager or supervisor, who will provide information about your abilities in the workplace, who will agree to submit the reference document before September 1st, which is the document deadline, and someone that you can contact or are in contact right now to talk about this request with them. Who's not a suitable professional reference is a coworker, a colleague, a friend, or an equal with no managerial or supervisory duties. Also, do not utilize someone from another department or area or part of your business who does not manage or supervise you. Definitely don't utilize family members. Don't utilize someone who's not able to provide information on your behalf. We want that reference document filled as best as that reference can provide, because it's a great opportunity for us to understand you in a professional setting. If you're not in contact with a reference, don't just blindly have this reference document show up in their inbox. Talk to them ahead of time. If they will not or cannot submit this form on your behalf, make sure that you are selecting references who can and will complete the document requirements. The number one reason that we see applications go unreviewed is by failure to have references provide documents on their behalf. It's a significant problem. Academic references are very similar. Academic references that are suitable for our process are a current or former professor, instructor, TA from a domestic or international post-secondary institution. Again, someone who has educated you, who can speak to your recent post-secondary abilities, someone who you are in contact with or can be in contact with, and someone who will agree to fill out the form in full and submit it on your behalf back to the SGSPA office by September 1st. Who's not suitable as an academic reference is a classmate with no academic supervisory duties, someone from a post-secondary institution outside of that 2-year window. So any studies prior to June 2022 at this point, you cannot utilize them as an academic reference. Someone who cannot provide the information or will not provide the information in the form, or someone that you're not in contact with, someone who won't be able to provide the form by the September 1st deadline. Really pick and choose your references appropriately, because what you're doing with the reference process is you're only submitting their contact information with your application. So you gather their information, their full name, their current email address, their current position, their current department, their current employer, and their telephone number. You add that to your application, and then it's up to them to finalize the documents on your behalf. You could have 8 different transcripts that you need to provide, and if you provide them all with your application is still incomplete if your referees do not get their documents in by the document deadline. So some really key takeaways here is that you are going to enter in the contact information for your 2 references in the application. Once you pay for your application, emails are sent out automatically to those individuals. So that's why you need to talk to your references ahead of time. Make sure you have their up-to-date information. Make sure they are comfortable and willing to receive the documents and complete them on your behalf. They must check their junk and spam folders, because not everything goes to the inboxes. And make sure that they are comfortable with doing that. You talk to them ahead of time. You talk to them during the process, and you monitor their submissions via your application in the SGSPA application system. Some other key things here. Again, remember, 1 professional reference from every applicant, manager, or supervisor. We will not accept 2 academic references, even if you fall within that 2-year window. You have to have 1 professional and 1 academic reference. Let's talk about the final item that every applicant needs to submit, and that is a personal statement of interest response. This is the prime opportunity for you to tell us about yourself. You have 400 words or 2,000 characters as a maximum limit, whichever one comes first, to enter into a text box a response to our personal statement of interest question. We really encourage you to utilize the word limit to its fullest. This is the only opportunity that you have to write about yourself, really. 1 to 2 sentences will not cut it for the admissions process. We really want to understand your understanding and interest in the program. You submit this with your application. You do not submit it afterwards. So make sure you are ready to click submit with that personal statement of interest box filled with your response to our question. Make sure you answer the question as well. The contents of your personal statement of interest reflect the effort that you put into it. Make use of the space, answer the question in full, be really mindful of what you're entering into that box. One of the key things here that I really want to stress is that you are not to use AI generation, technology, or external help to write your statement. This needs to come from you, from the heart, with no external help in either a technological form or a personal form. We have flagged a lot of AI generation statements before, and there are severe repercussions for applicants when it comes to any AI generation that's identified. It's fairly easy to identify when an AI generation, when an AI statement is generated and utilized. So don't utilize it. Again, severe repercussions. All right, now we start to drift into the things that only a select few applicants will need to provide. One of those things are English language proficiency test scores, or ELPT scores for short. We know that we generate a lot of interest from countries where English is not the native or official language, and we still encourage and welcome all students into our program, provided that all of our students demonstrate that they are English language proficient. Our program is the only English language pathway to becoming a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. We are extremely stringent on our requirements, and we want you to be successful in our program and beyond as you go into your professional endeavors. So the way that we gather information about who is English language proficient is through ELPT scores. We only select a few number of scores to be eligible for our program. And you can see them there at the bottom. We accept KLCE, IELTS Academic, TOEFL IBT, and for those 3 tests, we accept both the test center version and the online or home-based version of those tests. And we also accept the TOEFL PBT, which is typically a test center version only, available only in certain regions. This is a requirement of the admissions process. You have to have these scores into us by September 1st. So if you know that you need to provide an English language proficiency test score for the admissions review process, start now. The later you wait, the less time you have to prepare, and the more stressful this process becomes. I've taken one of these myself. I understand the stress that's involved. It is not fun. So just make sure you're preparing accordingly. We don't issue conditional offers of admission based on unsubmitted ELPT scores. This is required by that September 1st deadline. These are the scores that we accept. We accept a overall 70 with no band below 70 in KLCE, and we accept an overall 7.0 with no band below 7.0 in IELTS Academic. For TOEFL IBT, slightly different. We accept an overall score of 101 with no band below 25 out of 30, except for listening, which needs to be at 26 out of 30. And then for TOEFL PBT, we accept an overall score of 607. There are no exceptions to our scores that we accept. If you have an IELTS Academic of which you have a 9.0, but your writing score is at a 6.5, you're not eligible for admission consideration, and you will have to improve that individual band by however you see fit, whether you take the test again or you do something like the one skill retake available with IELTS. The other tests don't have one skill retake, so you'll have to consider completing the entire test again. There are some ELPTs that we don't accept. We don't accept CELPIP, CLB, Duolingo, Pearson, IELTS General, or any other test that's out there. Do not ask us to accept these tests. We will not extend any exceptions to the requirement. We only accept those 4 tests there. We don't accept any of these. All of this is listed on our website, and it's very black and white as to what our requirements are and how stringent we are regarding the tests we accept. What's also listed on our website are the exemptions. So we know that there are individuals out there who don't necessarily need to provide an ELPT score. The way that we look at our applicants is everybody needs to provide the ELPT score, but then we utilize our exemptions to allow for individuals to not have to submit it. And we'll go through all of the exemptions in a little bit. One of the things I want to highlight, though, is that if you already have one of these scores, one of the approved scores available, and it's no older than June 2022, we'll accept it for the admission review process, provided that the score meets the requirement. If you apply in July and your score is from June 2022, it's no longer eligible. It has to be within 2 years from the month of your application. And if your ELPT is getting real close to the expiry date, make sure you get your application in as soon as possible and have that score received by the SGSP office officially. The ESLA 150 program, which is our English for Academic Purposes program available through our School of English, is not available for January applicants, so we will not be covering that in this presentation. If you require that pathway, you'll have to consider our September 2025 application, which will open sometime in mid-January of next year. We're only going to be covering the 2 exemptions that are left, which is that you self-identify as a native English speaker or you meet all of the education exemption criteria. Let's take a look at our first exemption, you self-identify as a native English speaker. There's no specific description or definition regarding who is a native English speaker or not, but some things you should consider are kind of listed here. You were born and raised in a country where English is the official language. You have used nothing but English throughout your education at all levels. You have not taken any English as a second language courses, and you have constant contact in English throughout your personal and professional activities. You may consider yourself a self-identified native English speaker at that point, and you can request that for consideration to be exempt from submitting an ELPT score. You have to note that on the application. You have to make sure you list that you are requesting an exemption under that you identify or self-identify as a native English speaker. Even one thing to note here is that even if you self-identify, our admission committee reserves the right to request an ELPT score from any applicant during the admission review process. So nothing is set in stone when it comes to the ELPT requirements or the exemptions. And if you receive an exemption, that you're completely free and clear from needing to provide an ELPT score. If our admission committee wants to see further proof of your English language proficiency, they'll request it. The other exemption criteria is our education exemption. This has changed from our previous admission criteria, so make sure you're aware of what the updated criteria is now. So to meet the education exemption, you must have 4+ years of consecutive full-time academic study at a university in which English was the medium of instruction throughout your studies. Let's break that down. 4+ years is really key. That 4 years is typically your standard honors bachelor's degree, but this can be conducted across multiple institutions with no unnatural break. So if you studied at York University for 2 years, and then during the summer you decided to transfer to another institution, and you immediately attended that next institution the following September, that means that your studies are consecutive. If you studied at York University from 2010 to 2012, but didn't return to your studies until 2014, it's no longer consecutive and you're no longer eligible for the exemption. Consecutive full-time academic study is really key as well. So as I've already mentioned, the consecutive years is key, but consecutive full-time study is also key. If there was any term or reason why you dropped your studies down to a part-time study level, 1 or 2 courses, and it doesn't meet your institution's full-time requirement, you are no longer eligible for the exemption criteria. University studies is really key here. We don't accept non-university studies in place for the education exemption. College study programs do not work. Professional organizations or designations also do not work. English was the medium of instruction. That is really key. What we require at that point is a medium of instruction letter. So that means that you can have your institution provide us with a document that indicates that your studies were conducted all in full time, the time that you conducted when you started and ended your program, and that the medium of instruction for that institution and your program specifically was conducted in English. This is a great example of a letter. You can see that there is this comes from the University of Calcutta. There's a signature associated with it, and you can see here it does stress that medium of instruction was in English. It also outlines the program. Student was a Bachelor of Arts, a 2-year pass. So this one, maybe this is somebody who jumped from one institution to another and they finished up their Bachelor of Arts here, and this is indicating 2 years of their study. We would need to see what else this person has done to ensure that they meet the exemption criteria. What also is required is a transcript. You need all of your transcripts, and they all need to demonstrate that you were a full-time student. So make sure you have these proof of medium of instruction letters with all of these key components ready to go and upload with your application. If you don't have them, gather them now. If you can't gather them now, you can deliver them by the September 1st document deadline. If you don't meet an exemption, you must provide an ELPT score. No exceptions. No additional exemptions offered. If you request an exemption via your application, so within the application, there is a question that asks you, do you self-identify? Are you requesting an education exemption? Do you need to provide an ELPT score? Or are you interested in the ESLA 150, which is not available for January applicants? You select which one there. If you've requested to be exempt based on education and it's not approved, we assess your documents and you don't meet the criteria, that decision is final, and you have to submit an ELPT score for the admission review process. We will notify you if your exemption is not approved. Again, make sure you have those medium of instruction letters ready to go. And we also don't provide exemptions based on other criteria. We don't consider professional experience. We don't consider where you conducted your studies. It doesn't matter if you studied at a Canadian institution, one in the UK, one in Australia. It does not factor in. It has to be that time, the 4+ years of consecutive full-time academic study at a university where the medium of instruction was English. We also don't utilize citizenship or geographic location. We know that there are Canadian citizens who bring with them to Canada their mother languages, and that's extremely important to this country. We want you to be able to communicate with your family, with your friends, and your community in a language that you are comfortable in. Our program, though, is delivered entirely in English. We need you to be successful. As mentioned, if you know that you don't meet these exemption criteria at this point, start preparing for the ELPT now. If you're hesitant as to whether you qualify for any of our exemption, start preparing for an ELPT now. The more time you give yourself to educate, to learn, and then to take the test, the better your score will be. The later you wait, the worse your score will be, as we've seen with our review process. The final thing I want to mention before we open up to questions is the access pathway. So this is a pathway for individuals who don't quite meet the academic admission criteria. This means that you have some undergraduate study. Perhaps you completed a bachelor's degree, but you don't have that B average, or you maybe finished 2 years of an undergraduate, maybe even 1 year, maybe a single term. You didn't finish it. You have some grades. It didn't go great. But then you went to another program. Maybe you completed a paralegal diploma at a college. Perhaps all of those combined, maybe there's some sort of factor that just prevented you from achieving the academic admission criteria, but you have the relevant professional experience required in the field of law or in immigration and citizenship, 5+ years to be exact. The access pathway may be for you. Individuals who have those 5+ years of of professional experience across full-time or part-time work, maybe even some volunteer experience, and you have some university study, we can consider you under the access pathway. What you will have to do is select under the first question on the application that you wish to be considered under the access pathway. Then you need to provide an emailed copy of your up-to-date transcript, or transcripts are necessary, your resume or CV that highlights your professional experience. And then you also need to provide a statement under the special circumstances section of the application that identifies the life circumstances that may have presented barriers and or discouraged access to successful completion of your degree studies. So with the resume, you email it directly to us at the program office, and make sure you include your application reference number in any of your correspondence with our program. And with the statement, make sure you highlight the past issues that hindered your academic study. So tell us why you weren't able to achieve that B, or you weren't able to finish your undergraduate program. Do not highlight any of the current barriers. We don't need to know what your family situation is right now. If you're experiencing difficulties moving forward, it all needs to focus on your past experiences. Don't forget to answer that question in full as well. Utilize that space. And again, make sure it answers the question that we're asking specifically about your previous studies. Access pathway candidates, of course, have to still submit all their transcripts. A low GPA on its own and no professional experience, that means you're not eligible for the access pathway. You have to have those 5+ years of relevant professional experience in the field of law and or immigration and citizenship. You submit your resume afterwards to us. And again, that statement, 200-word maximum or 1,200 character maximum, done via the special circumstances section of the application. All right, before we open up the Q&A, just some final points here about the January 2025 admission cycle. We open it on June 1st. It will close on August 1st. So make sure you are applying at the correct time frame. The document deadline is September 1st. So all those ELPT scores, your resumes, any other document that's outstanding needs to be in by September 1st. Review our website, and I'll put information in the chat for all the websites you should visit. And only submit the documents that are requested or required for your application. If we haven't requested those specific documents, don't include them. There's no refund of the application fee, which is really, really important. So make sure you are ready to apply. There's also no deferrals for any of our applicants or incoming students for January. You can't change your study to the following September. You will have to wait until September to apply at that point. All right. Oh, one of the final things, utilize the professional experience section of the application. I'm going to go ahead and open up the Q&A. What I ask you to do is one question at a time. That just allows us to answer as many questions as we can here today. I have my admissions team here to help answer questions. Also, you can upvote questions, and I will answer any upvoted questions verbally here in the session. So you can go ahead and give it a thumbs up. And we would definitely appreciate that. Also within your question, no personal information, no cell numbers, no addresses, no email addresses. Don't spam your question multiple times. We're going to get to as many as we can today. We're going to stay a little bit after. Also, don't ask us for any specific assessment information. Don't ask us, well, I have this GPA, is that acceptable? We don't provide that information. There are resources available online that will help you convert an international GPA over to the Queen's 4.3 scale. And a B average on the 4.3 scale is a 3.0. All right, so let's take a look at some of these questions. So the Q&A, oh, I'm going to put stuff into the chat first. So I'm going to go ahead and add the links to the chat. Go ahead there, take a look at the chat. There's a lot of great websites there for your usage. Definitely go ahead and utilize that. All right, so we're just going to go through here. Somebody's asking if someone already has a bachelor's 4-year degree and currently enrolled in a college program, then will be graduating on September 20th, 2024. How do you submit that transcript? That one, you're going to have to ask if it's graduation. If you're completing your program in the summer, you don't have to necessarily wait for your graduation date to provide us with the documents. Provide your final course documents before that date. Realistically, summer terms typically end early August. You should have your documents or some form of final grades somewhere within the in their system. So make sure that you utilize that and submit that. September 20th is a little late, so make sure you're talking to your college program team to see when things will be available. Somebody's asking, are the courses module-based where exams are done after each course unit? There are no exams for our courses. So basically, they're kind of modular in the sense of you're going to be learning specific information in each course, but it's not modular based on exams because there are none for our program. All right. Somebody's asking, can you enroll as a full-time student and later change to part-time? Study plan changes can be reviewed. You have to request that once you enter into the program. You would need to provide what the rationale is for you to change your study plan. If you change from full-time to part-time and were offered a bursary, you're no longer eligible for that, I believe. So just be mindful of that. Would there be any time off / break in full-time courses during the 3 semesters? Good question. There's a slight break between terms. It is not a lot of time. It's not like your typical like summer off if you're doing a standard undergrad where you go from fall to winter and then you take the summer off. It's usually about a week or a week and a half. So just be really mindful of that. This program's a commitment. I don't want to understate that enough. This program is a significant commitment for anybody who's entering it. Be prepared to sacrifice a lot in your professional and personal lives. Also, I should note that full-time students cannot be employed full-time. This is a regulation set out by Queen's University. So you'll have to reduce your professional workload down or apply for a part-time study plan. Somebody's asking that they recently changed their first and last name. However, bachelor's degree from India still bears previous name. You will have to provide a name change certificate. That will be required to be uploaded with your application. I've worked as a student advisor in Dubai for Canadian student visas. Does that count as experience in the Access Pathway program? It would be reviewable. I would say working with visa applications, working with students, provided that it was official and governed by Dubai or by a Canadian organization. Preferably, there was some sort of regulated Canadian immigration consultant involved. That can be reviewable, but I'm not going to provide any guarantees on anybody's professional experience. That will be reviewed on a case-by-case basis by our admission committee. What can I do if my university will provide and mail my transcripts in Spanish? How do I get them translated? Good question. A certified translator would typically need to be included in this process. So your sealed transcripts would need to be received by them, and then they would provide their certified translation directly to the School of Graduate Studies and Postdoctoral Affairs office. I do encourage you to visit the link that I've provided there. It's the queensu.ca/grad-postdoc link that I put into the chat. And if you open up step 2, compile documentation, that drop-down menu, it has some information about translations. Somebody's asking, if someone has a paralegal diploma from Ontario, we still need to complete Queen's University immigration program and also have to attend EPE to practice as a regulated consultant in Ontario. That is correct. Paralegals do have some abilities within kind of the immigration ecosystem. There are things that paralegals can do, but there's a limit. There's kind of a cap as to what that individual can do versus what an RCIC can do. So if you want to do more, and I mean, paralegals are already doing great work. If you want to kind of step up that game a little bit more and be a full-time RCIC, you'll have to complete our program. But that paralegal experience that you already have is probably going to definitely help with your application. If you have completed a bachelor's prior to your paralegal diploma, you can apply via that method. If you don't have any of your, if you haven't completed a bachelor's, but you have some university study, you can utilize your experience provided that it's 5 full years minimum. Will we receive a GPA for each course and a cumulative GPA for the program? Will the GPA impact our eligibility or competitiveness to pass the EPE exam for RCICs? So that's a very good question. What we do is we break down every single course and we take a look at the grade achieved there. And when we compile it into a full GPA for that entire program of study. We don't limit it to a certain number of years. We know that there are some institutions that say, oh, we'll take your best 2 years or your last 2 years. We take everything into consideration. We will compile that as a GPA, and then other programs will also compile the same individual GPAs, combining them together for a cumulative GPA for your overall studies. Of course, we're going to primarily look at your undergraduate, but other programs will assist. The EPE has no factor or bearing as to how you got admitted into our program. Obviously, grades are important for our program. It's a B- is a passing grade for our program. Anything below a B- is not passing. So you complete our program in full, and then you go for the EPE afterwards. I do not believe there is any factor in regards to what your GPA is. It's only a confirmation from our program that you completed the program. How can I apply the monthly split by Queen's University? I presume you're talking about the tuition payment plan. That's done through your student information system. It's called Solace. It's done during the point that you have accepted an offer of admission and you begin your study. So it's much later in the process. I would encourage you to devote your time to the admission review first. Does post-secondary education means my education after 12th grade? Yes. Anything after high school, which is classified as secondary, is post-secondary. Do we have to write the statement of interest while filling the application form, or when we have to submit the documents? Good question. So anybody who starts an application, and I'm going to actually shut down the questions for the time being. Anybody who starts an application, you can save it and come back to it at a later point. So it would be good for you to go in, understand the process, start to compile the information. But if you want a little bit of time to write down your statement, review the question, save the application, and fill it in at a later point. It has to be provided with your application and submitted before the application deadline of end of day August 1st. All right. Does a 3-year Bachelor's of Laws from the University of London qualify under education exemption for ELPTs? 3 year. So that's a hang up there. Now, we look at the time spent studying, not the equivalency of the program. So a lot of West documents will indicate that a 3-year degree is the equivalent of a 4-year. We look at the time spent. So if you've only studied 3 years, it's not 4 years. It won't qualify alone. You will have to have some additional study that is consecutive. So no more than one term separating your one study from the other. What was the admission cutoff for the bachelor's degree holder in last year's admission? The classic questions that we always see. We don't provide this information out. We endeavor to review every single application that is complete for our program, and we do our best to bring in the best individuals into the program. What I can say is that there are not enough spaces available for all of the qualified applicants who would be eligible for admission. It's a competitive program. What I can encourage is that you do what you can to complete the application in full, get yourself ready and admissible, provide all the documents, and really work on that personal statement and get good references. All of those components combined will really help an application, but I can't provide you any specific information. I also am not going to provide information as to how many spaces there are, how many people we admit every single term. It changes year to year. Would my master's GPA also be an addition to my undergraduate GPA, or will you only be considering undergraduation? We will consider everything. The primary basis of admission is that bachelor's, but we can utilize graduate level studies to kind of supplement into an overall GPA. That's why we ask for everything. Does the medium of instruction letter also have to be sent directly from the university, or we have to upload during the application submission? So I would say it's both. You will, if you have them available with your transcripts directly from the institution, include them with your upload. If you don't have them and you're requesting the education exemption, you apply, say it's really last minute, you had some issues, you couldn't apply until like close to the last day. You can submit your application without this document, but make sure that then that transcript is sent on your behalf to our program office. It can no longer come from you. We can't have any documents delivered from the applicant after the application has been submitted. So you will have to get your institution to send those letters that indicate the medium of instruction directly to us. I already covered that one. Somebody's completed a 3-year degree in high tea from a college affiliated to a renowned university, but according to West Canadian equivalency, it's a 4-year degree. I've already covered that. We don't review equivalencies. We review the time spent in the program. You have a good GPA from your master's and from your bachelor's and master's. However, the GPA for my graduate studies is low. Will it influence my application? Not as much if it's the other way around. So if your undergraduate's low, that will be more of the indicating factor. We take all of this into consideration, though, to determine who would be best suited for our program. So the primary basis of admission being that bachelor's. If your bachelor's is good, that's a good start. And we'll take a look to see what the situation is with your master's program. Somebody's asking that they're on an open work permit in Ontario right now. Am I eligible to apply for the program? Absolutely. There is no specific work or study permit visa plan required for our program. We are delivered entirely online. This program can be conducted globally, provided that you can attend your courses, your tutorials in the Eastern Standard Time Zone. Our program is not PGWP eligible, if that's a factor, so just be mindful of that. I have my graduation degree from Punjab University and have detailed mark sheets. Will the scanned documents of my detailed mark sheets work, or you want the university to directly send you the transcripts? So we would accept for the admission review process the scanned detailed mark sheets that you do have. That would be great for you to submit. If for some reason the School of Graduate Studies and Postdoctoral Affairs notes that your documents are unacceptable for their process, they will note that in your application. There will be a listing there as to what's required. Then at that point, you will have to have your institution, in this case, Punjab University, to send documents on your behalf. But typically uploads, really good scanned copies of your documents will be acceptable for the admission review process. Get really good scans. Please, I cannot encourage that enough. The best scans that you can get, the better. Keep the file size low by scanning them in black and white. And if there's any information on the reverse side, like just details about the program, the way that the GPA is calculated, include one copy of that. Don't include reverse copies for each page. We only need it once. If it's blank, don't include it. Is it necessary to provide medium of instruction letters to be exempted from the English requirement, even if I attended a full-time American institution for 4 years? Given that English is the official language in the US, it seems self-evident. It typically does. I mean, the US is fine for the most part, but of course we do acknowledge that there are institutions in the US that don't teach primarily in English. So I mean, if the institution, if it lists on the transcript, or if it's just easy enough for you to grab a letter confirming that, that would be ideal. But we will evaluate it on a case-by-case basis, and we will make the determination to request that document or not. Again, I say if it's just easier for you to contact that institution and for them to type up something quickly that you include with your documents, then it makes it easier for us to not have to search for something if we have any questions. It's similar to the way that it is in Canada. There are, obviously in Quebec, there are both English and French language universities. If you're coming from McGill, I mean, there might be some programming that would be questionable, but we know that McGill mostly educates their students in English, but we would still ask for some sort of confirmation just for the ease of the admission review process. What if someone doesn't have the required GPA in the bachelor's degree, but has the required GPA in the post-baccalaureate studies? Will it satisfy the admission requirements? That's an it depends case. We will review that to see if we can come up with a really good cumulative GPA for those individuals. I would encourage anybody who knows that their undergraduate GPA is not great to try and find those resources online to convert over to a 4.3 scale and see how close you are to a 3.0 on a 4.3 scale. If you're pretty significantly far, I would say wait to apply and do some upgrading of your undergraduate studies. The certificate in law program with Queen's University is 4 courses of undergraduate study that would help. But you may have to do some extensive upgrading if your GPA is quite far away from a 3.0. Or if you want to talk to your original institution, if you can convert some of your lower grades to a pass-fail system, those don't apply to the overall GPA assessment. So maybe that would be an opportunity to help you bolster your GPA. Is the GPA acquired in a 4-year university program needs to be at a B grade? So I think I've just kind of covered that. Oh no, I covered that earlier. We don't look at like just the most recent 2 years, the past 2 years. We look at the entire university study. All right, that is it for questions. We are over time, but I wanted to make sure that we made ourselves available as much as we could. For any further information, definitely do visit the links that I've put in the chat. Visit our website, facebook.com/QueensLawGWICL. Sign up for our mailing list and email our program office at immigrationdiploma@queensu.ca. Myself and my team are more than happy to help you. But I think we will go ahead and stop the session there. Thank you very much for participating and attending. Hopefully this was really informative and you're gearing up for a January 2025 application. If you have any questions, let us know. Happy to help. sign up for another future webinar. But just thank you very much for attending this one, and have yourself a great day.